I'm going to instead become like a self-actualized adult who's normal and in
Yeah.
touch with emotions.
We just
But
need more men to do that.
100%. It's kind of how like the virgin whore dichotomy for women. I think men's dichotomy is like king baby.
No, legit though. Because, yeah, if you're not like the one in charge of everything, you're just like, and then they act like babies. And then they promise that's all. Ugh, men are just unique creatures.
Well, yeah, I'm curious about, are we rolling, by the way? Okay, word. I'm curious about, well, because you're gay. Are you okay
Yeah.
with being openly gay on the
I'm
podcast? Okay.
openly gay. Yeah. Girl, I can't do anything to hide it. I'm openly gay. My aerial tattoo tells me enough for me. Yes, 100%.
I was going to say, you come on with your voice and you're like, no, I'd really like to keep that a private fact.
No, literally with my vocal fry, my natural vocal fry, 100%.
Okay, so my question is obviously like one thing that straight women talk a lot about is there's kind of this plague of like men who like don't have executive functioning skills and like can't run their lives to any degree, and then on top of that aren't trying and aren't like aware of that. And it's like, well, in relationships of two men, is that like still a problem?
For me, yeah. But it might also just be like a me thing.
I sometimes wonder, what's your sign?
I'm a Gemini.
Okay. Do you consider yourself like a type A person?
Yes.
Because I'm a Capricorn and I think it's not that men are incompetent. I think that I attract incompetent men because I have a surplus of executive functioning skills. And like a lot of times if I like can take on too much of that load in a relationship, I just naturally end up doing that.
Yeah, and I want like a derpy guy. Like I want, like I hate that I do, but I want like a
Oh,
derp.
wait, that's actually so true because I was thinking about this recently that like I have met men who are like really organized and clean and always thinking ahead and can like plan a whole trip and everything. But like when I meet those men, my pussy's dry. Like,
Yeah.
I have met your feminist boyfriend and you can keep him. Like he's not my type personally.
I like wish I liked that. Like in my dating, I feel like all the guys that I'm like, oh my gosh, you were like relationship material. The second I realize that, I'm like, no. And I'm like, why? Like my body's just like, why are you attracted? Like you're not attracted. Like stop. Like it's gross. I'm like, why? Why did that? Like that shouldn't give me the ick.
Yeah.
Or like my body will find an ick for it.
It's so weird because it's like there are certain qualities that I expect that in any relationship that I find that I'm going to be the more type A person because I can't imagine being attracted to someone who is as type A as I am because I think it's disgusting.
Yeah.
So I expect that I will be the more type A person. It's just like we have to find like some sort of balance. I don't want that natural like power vacuum to occur.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because I'm also a type A, I've always wanted someone really grounding because I feel like I'm up in the air a lot. Like I like things to be organized and that kind of thing. And I like having order to things, but because I do like comedy and I've been performing my whole life, I want someone who can help me like ground myself into that. And it feels like all the people who are grounding are garbage.
Oh, no, not garbage. Okay. This
Some
is
are.
a non-judgmental zone. But yes, that grounding vibe, that vibe of like a brain that moves at a calmer rate tends to also happen to be the brain that's like not necessarily thinking about making the reservation.
Yep. It's like hard. And that's like what I want. And I know that would help me in a relationship. Not in one, but like I know that would help.
The grounding energy or the reservation?
Yeah, the grounding energy, and maybe I can make the reservation. It's fine if you keep me grounded. Like I'll survive. It's
I just want you to once in a while.
Yeah,
I am totally fine with that kind of stuff being done by me naturally about 70% of the time. But if I go over 70%, and a lot of times it's like me just naturally doing stuff, so it's 100% fully my fault that this has happened to me a lot, that this dynamic occurs. If I go over 70%, all of a sudden I'm like extremely dissatisfied. So I have to remember that a lot of times that dynamic comes from me and is initiated by me, because if I stepped back and stopped doing that stuff, a lot of times people will start doing it.
And it's like hard to believe they will though. It's so hard.
Because like, have you lived with roommates where it's like you clean all the fucking time? And it's like, I don't know that if I would have waited until tomorrow, if I would have left it dirty, would this other person have cleaned? I don't know. I don't want to personally. I want a clean space for the rest of the day. So I'm going to clean right now.
Yep.
And it's like, I know that that's my problem. Not everyone else has to be on my exact timeline, but it's so hard to ever step back and give people the chance to
like
rise to the occasion.
Yeah, because I just said when, but like if they don't, you're
Right,
just
right,
like,
right.
ah! Like that drives. Yeah, no, I'm a clean
And
freak.
I also hate the idea of like, well, now it feels like I'm setting up a little test for them. That's a secret test that they're going to walk in tomorrow and all of a sudden they have failed a test they didn't know
Yep.
about. And what's the alternative? I vocalized the test. Now I'm mommy. Now I'm
Yeah.
Mrs. Jones' kindergarten teacher. And that's a problem for me.
Yeah, that's very relatable because I'm a clean freak. I didn't realize I was a clean freak. I didn't realize how bad it was until I like moved out of my house because I was like, oh, my brother's just gross. I'm like, oh no, he is gross, but a lot of people are just like happen to not be
Yeah.
quite as clean as I would. I was always so scared I would be the dirty roommate, and I have yet to be the dirty roommate, and I'm cool with that. But it does kind of make it hard because then I'm like, if it's not clean to like my standard, then I get upset. But then it's like, if I vocalize how like I want things all the time, then it's like then I'm like the bossy one. It's a really hard dynamic to like work
And
with.
I have been the dirty roommate, but specifically only because I have a weird thing about shared spaces where if a shared space is not going to be like up to my standards of like clean and tidy and comfortable, then I just like fully think of it as like, this is not mine. I have no ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I have no responsibility. And I just like compartmentalize. So in every house that I've lived in, like my room will be perfect because for my brain to function normally, I just like need that space to be clutter free.
Mm-hmm.
But then like a shared bathroom, I like will maybe need to be reminded that it's my turn to clean because it's like I already knew we weren't going to be able to keep it clean to my standards. So I was just kind of like, whatever, this is my dorm bathroom. It's a shared space.
I'm actually the same way.
But I learned, and I think especially like the more people who live in the house and the more you're not on the same page, the more that. So I will fully cop to the fact that I have been a person who has needed to be reminded to be too clean. I specifically had this one roommate. It was a house of 4, but we had the upstairs of the house, the two of us, and we shared a bathroom. And I told her, not seeing that there was any problem with this, I was like, I think you're like maybe you probably care more about the cleanliness of the bathroom, so just like I'll do whatever, just remind me to do it. And this was before we knew about like emotional labor, and that's actually me saying like, you have to be the manager of the bathroom and I guess I'll be your employee occasionally. But it's like, no, that's not equality. That's not like helping. That's not partner. That's not we share this space. That's like me like demanding that she's the manager.
Yeah, and then when it changes the entire dynamic.
And now a lot of times I've had a lot of like relationships where I default to be the manager of a lot of different things, and I'm like, this is karma.
Oh my gosh, I can be the man, but I've also defaulted manager before. I've never thought of it like that. That's like mind blowing.
It's something that comes up a lot in hetero relationships because a lot of times like the quintessential classic mom figure is the manager of every facet of domestic life. She's the manager of meals. She's the manager of children. She's the manager of social life and et cetera, and cleaning and everything. And then the husband's like, well, I'll just do whatever you want. Just tell me what to do. And it's like, well, no, that's still such an insanely uneven. Even if she was managing every facet of life and you were doing all of the on the ground labor, that's still in a corporation, she would get paid more because it would be understood that that's more work.
Yeah, I actually have a friend going through a divorce right now, and that was a huge thing. Is he would be like, "Just tell me what to do."
Yeah.
But then he also wouldn't do it. He was just garbage for lots of reasons. But like that would
Just tell me what to do and I'll ignore it.
He would literally, and like, but she had to cook. She had to take care of things. If things got cleaned from him, it was because she told him to do it 5 times.
Yeah.
And like a friend was coming over, and that's why he cleaned it.
I hate that.
They're done now. Thank God. Thank God. They're done. Ooh.
Divorce is always great.
You know, I have never been so excited for one before in my life.
I've never heard about a divorce that was like a bad decision.
I haven't either, and she will not regret this one.
I feel the same way about breakups because my boyfriend, my current boyfriend, we had a period where we broke up, and I, to this day, think that that was an extremely good decision. Our relationship was not good. It needed things changed, so we broke up, and then we just got back together. It's so easy to get back together if that's what ends up needing to happen, but it's like never the wrong choice to break up. If you're like wondering if you should break up, I'm kind of one of those people who's like, do it. See how they change when you break up. A lot of times it makes everything better.
I mean, but that does make so much sense. I've done some breakups, the only one I've kind of regretted, I don't even know if I regretted it though. I just would be willing to consider things again rather than like because I couldn't give it the space it needed to. I got the ick. He gave me strep, and like my least favorite cold symptom is a sore throat. Like, do you give me everything but a sore throat, and that's all strep is. And I think it was him, and I couldn't get it out of my mind every single time I saw him. That I was like, he gave me strep, and now I'm like, come on, dude.
What did the ick come? Did the ick come from the idea that like he's gross and not conscientious, and he's walking around giving people strep without any sort of like what? Because the ick is like it's like a reflexive, deep, animalistic thing.
Well, so I have OCD, and I have always had like, I get really, really scared I'm gonna like die of like a sickness or something like that. And so that's just kind of like baseline. And so then getting strep, and I would like woke up at like 3 a.m. like my throat, like I couldn't swallow, and I was like, what the fuck? I didn't think it was him. And then I told a friend that I got it, and she was like, oh, you got it from him. And I was like, no, I didn't. She's like, look at the timeline of like how you're feeling versus when you made out with him.
Did he have strep?
No.
Wait.
But like nobody else. I also am weird. I will get shit and people will give me things and they don't ever get it. So I think maybe he just like had a bacteria.
Yeah, but also I'm pretty sure you can get strep not just from making out with someone. I'm pretty sure that it's like can be out in the world, in locker rooms and such. Like I don't think that just because you've only made out with one person that means he gave you strep. I don't think this man gave you strep, Calvin.
Well, I'm thinking about texting him again. So like, I'll tell him
right now.
I can't. Not right now.
You're
I don't know what I'm going to say.
pulling out your phone.
No.
Let the record show that as he was like, I can't, not right now, he pulled out his phone.
Not right now. Because I have been debating whether or not my therapist knows about this man.
Yeah.
I started taking...
Does your therapist understand how strep gets passed on?
So he also questioned me on it, but then when I was like literally...
Because he didn't have strep.
He didn't. I texted him and I was like, hey, I have strep. Like, I'm so sorry. And he was like, I don't have any. And I was like... Okay, but and I didn't give it to anybody. Like, nobody around me got it. So I just kind of assumed he gave it to me and he just, like, had natural immunity or something to the strep.
I don't think that's how that works at all.
Well, I'm proud to be wrong.
Because, like, I know that, yeah, like, I guess most of what I know about strep is like I have a friend who would like keep getting strep all the time because she was just susceptible to strep, but she didn't get it from making out with people because we weren't making out with people. We were like 14.
Yeah, and I had a friend who's like that too. That was my first time ever getting strep.
So if you can get strep without kissing people, how do you know it's him?
I just, looking back, I can't think of anything else I did. I mean, it was like over a year ago now too, but the second my friend was like, he probably gave it to you, I like couldn't get it out of my mind. So that kind of, it gave me, and I was like, would he give it to me again or whatever? And so I ended things.
That's the power of propaganda, really, when you think about it.
Isn't it? Propaganda. Wow.
Your friend was orchestrating a psyop. Okay, I actually do think that, our first piece of advice on the pod today is that I think you should text that guy.
Literally, my roommate's going to love to hear this.
The strep is gone.
The strep is gone. The
and I think your friend doesn't understand how the strep works. No offense.
I'll tell her that literally, because it was just like such an off the cuff thing. And I have been wanting to text him, and my therapist is like, I think you should do it. And I'm going out of town this weekend, so I was thinking about actually texting him when I got back.
Yes.
And that's like been in my book. I was out of town last weekend too, and so I was like, well, maybe wait until your 2 weekends where you're kind of back to back.
Yeah.
Out of town. Wait until like after that. Because if he would be like, oh yeah, let's go on a date. I think it'd be weird to be like, hey, let's go on a date. I'm back in 2 weeks. Like my schedule will be back to normal then. Figure it out.
Yeah, scheduling 2 weeks in advance and sending him like a Google Calendar invite is like not sexy.
Yeah, I was like, maybe wait until I can have like a little bit more freedom to just be like, oh yeah, like I can change up when I'm going to the gym. Now it's like if I change up when I'm going to the gym, I'm not going to the gym because I'm out of town this weekend.
Yeah.
And my body issues won't let me not go to the gym.
It's so funny. I have the same problem with the gym where if I am like traveling for comedy for a weekend, I don't know why, but if I like don't go to the gym on like Monday, I'll just be like, fuck, well, my whole week's shot. I'm like literally not leaving until Thursday. I don't know why. For some reason in my mind, it's like, well, I guess I'm just not going to the gym until next Monday.
Yeah, I'm like, if it's not like how my plan is, we're type A. If it's not in the plan, I'm upset. Like, come on. I will literally plan out like my week in advance, like with like mics versus shows versus the gym. I'm like, we need to make sure all this can fit into the exact way. I'd like to have a night to chill. That doesn't happen all the time, but yeah, we try.
Same. That's exactly. Yeah. Oh God. Type A people are the best.
We are.
Just I couldn't be around one. I don't have a single, like,
Yeah.
like, none of my friends, none of the people I gravitate to share that in common with me, because I think that if I was around that energy a lot, I think I would probably start to be like, oh, never mind.
I have, my roommate is type A, and her and I work, but I think we're type A in different ways.
Yeah,
so we almost
that
cancel each
works.
other out, but a majority of my friends are type B. My two best friends from high school are type B, and planning a trip with them is hard because they're both really spontaneous and I'm not. So I'm like, let's plan this. And they're like, okay, we'll figure it out. I'm like, no, like, let's plan
You can't
it now.
be spontaneous if you're your age, because you're also, like, a little poor.
They don't care as
can't
much.
be spontaneous and broke. Spontaneous and broke equates to not doing anything fun for years. Straight up.
You know,
And then you get your tax return and you suddenly go on a trip and you do one fun thing every year when you get your tax return.
I do know people who are like that. I mean, at least we were really, like, we've been smart when we've taken trips, at least with this friend group, is we, like, go to, because all of us grew up in Colorado, but one lives in Florida and one lives in Nashville. And so last year we all flew to Nashville and we stayed with her.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
then
cute,
this year we
actually.
did Orlando, and we had to do a hotel, but we split it between, like, 3 people, so it wasn't nearly as much.
Yeah.
Like, little things like that, we do that to where it's, like, a much more affordable trip to help prevent that. Also, because I don't ever want to drop that much. I was raised very frugal, and so I try to stay
Same.
very frugal. So I'm like, let's make it as cheap as possible. Okay, I'll stay at someone's house. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just don't have bed bugs, and we're set.
And honestly, sometimes I've stayed in a lot of hotels. At this point, like, it's normal to me to, like, walk into a hotel fully. I do my bed bug check, like 20-minute top to bottom bed bug check. I have never stayed in a hotel where I didn't walk in and think probably.
I now will
Every
have to
time
do
I'm
that,
like,
yeah.
I'm so, like, surprised that there's no bed bugs. What a nice treat to start off my trip with.
Have you ever had bed bugs? Like, have you ever
No.
found them? Yeah.
Mm-mm. But I can feel that the second I start thinking about them, I'll, like, feel them on
yep.
my skin for like 2 days. It's so bad. Okay, wait. Thank you so much for tuning in to Help with Hannah Jones. We're filming today in Dude IDK Studios in Denver. Thank you to Patreon patrons for supporting this podcast. And my guest in the studio today, he is a newer comic. He's crushing it all over the comedy scene here in Denver. Put your hands together for Calvin Reed.
Oh my gosh, applause. Clap for myself.
So much applause,
Oh my
dude.
gosh, the standing ovation that this room just gave me was really moving.
Okay, so we've already talked about so much. You said there was something that happened in your past week that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to talk about it today because it drove me crazy. I am trying to get TSA PreCheck, be one of those bad bitches.
Sexy.
I know. I really want it. And my goal is to travel even more with comedy. So
That's
it's
type
like,
A final evolution.
I think the clear is the true.
Oh, so true.
Like, I think I'm the second. Like, we were Bulbasaur.
You know what's so weird? I don't have TSA PreCheck, and I always feel embarrassed when I talk to comics about it, because any comic who's working the road has PreCheck, and they're like, you're a literal Slavic, like, you're not a real comic. I was opening for Dave Attell this weekend, and I was we were talking about traveling, and I was like, yeah, and weirdly enough, I don't have PreCheck, and he's like, neither do I.
Dave
Attell straight up does not have TSA PreCheck, and I was like, that's weird, dude. That's weirder for you than it is for me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, when it first came out, I just, like, didn't want to give the government that kind of information. And he's like, but now I think they probably have it anyway. It's like, also, Dave, you're famous. Like, the government knows about you. Sorry, your plan to be off-grid isn't going to work because you're famous, because you're one of the greatest comedians of all time. Did he think that perhaps the government's just, like, that he could live in anonymity
Does he
forever?
have a car? Does he have, like, a home?
I don't know.
If he has any of those things, the
I'm
government
sure he
has the
has a
same.
home, Calvin.
Like, okay, that's true. But, like, does he? Is
I know he
homeless?
dresses
No.
like that, but, like, he has a home, though.
But, like, if he does, then the government has his information. I, like, filled out my TSA stuff, and I was like, this is all stuff, like, I've given out
Well, yeah,
before.
census. And also registering to vote. Does he vote?
Yeah.
No, but I think PreCheck is, like, another level of, I don't know.
I'm not
It's
approved
just
yet.
weird.
I'm waiting. I did my appointment today, but they fucking canceled it as I was
Damn.
walking in the door. I was like, what am I supposed to do? So I just, like, my goal is, I work
There
in
should be
customer
a
service.
cancellation fee for you.
They were like, please don't cancel. If you're going to cancel, do it within 24 hours. Girl, I showed up. Y'all canceled within 10 minutes. I don't know what to tell you.
Disgusting.
Yeah, so I called. I try not to be, I'm not a Karen. But I will call and be like, hey, like, this does need to be figured out.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be like, hey, you should die. You know, like, I work customer service. So, like, I know to, like, It's not their fault, but like, please help me.
I'm usually really good. That actually, I was bad recently. Okay, so I'm usually really good because I fully understand. And if I ever feel myself getting frustrated, I'm pretty in tune with my emotions. And so I'll say, I hope you understand this is not directed at you. I fully understand you're not the decision maker here. I think you could probably empathize with why this is so frustrating for me. So if you hear my tone, and a lot of times if I realize that I've had a tone, I'll be like, hey, I'll apologize at the end of the call or whatever. But I like work really hard on that. If you've been listening to the pod, you know that I have the worst landlord in the whole world. So things have gotten worse. And then yesterday, so basically things have gotten so bad, everything's broken all the time, and I leave messages and they don't get responded. And after the first 3 months of leaving messages and not getting responded, I like leave a message and I record it just for a paper trail. And I'm like, hey, I know no one's gonna hear this. I know this messaging line doesn't work, but it's the only way to get in contact with someone if I have like a question, because it's not like I don't have a maintenance portal. I just have like questions about like, when is this thing going to be fixed? Like, you already know it's broken kind of thing. That's usually what it is.
Yeah.
I just like need to know, do you have an expectation of when the water's going to come back on? Are there people here working on it?
Yeah.
Or do I need to make plans to stay somewhere else tonight kind of stuff? So I'm always leaving these messages, and it's become kind of like a running joke between myself and my phone that every time I'm like, I know no one listens to these, but like, never mind, you know? And so I've just gotten kind of like snarky, progressively snarkier, and I've never gotten a response to one of these. I got one response to one very early on, and then I stopped getting responses forever.
Ew.
So at this point, it's like a running joke. Yesterday, I was without heat and without water for forever, and they said your water will be back on at 4. And then at 4, it was not on, and they were like, oh, sorry, it's still off. Like, they sent out an email to everyone that said the water's still off. And so then it was like 6, and I was like, oh, fuck, like, if it doesn't come on, it's probably not coming on, and like I need to make plans for where I'm gonna shower because I have like stuff to do that I need to like look presentable for.
Yeah.
And also like I need drinking water. I'm almost out, so
Like,
I need to start making plans.
That. Yeah.
So I left a message like no heat, no water. And I started getting kind of emotional because it had been such a hard day having no heat and water. And it was really cold in Denver. And I was like, I know no one's gonna listen to this. I know no one's gonna respond to this because you never respond to this. And moving in here was the worst mistake of my life. I hate this place. Go fuck yourself. And I will say that was a wrong thing to say. That was an extremely unkind thing to say. I try not to be that person. I think that was a wake-up call for me that, like, I need to work harder and not be that kind of person and not let my emotions get the better of me, because the person that I was theoretically calling is not the person who was the reason I was without water, you know?
Yeah.
But I did go into the office the next day. I had a bunch of different questions about all the different things that were broken. And then at the end of the meeting, I was like, also, like, why don't I get responses to the calls? Like, why can't I call you? Why isn't that a method of communication that is usable? And he's like, oh, you mean your profanity laden messages that you've been leaving? I was like, I think I've left like one with profanity. I might have used other profanity like this is shitty in other calls, but I think I only left one with profanity that was inappropriate directed toward you. And I've left like 20 that were perfectly nice. And he's like, well, that's just not how you treat people. That's just not how you get stuff done. And it's like, fully, like, you're right, but also like I feel like it's more nuanced than that.
It is more nuanced than that. I'm sorry. I'm not for Karens except for landlording. Like, you need to be a Karen with a landlord because they are not going to respect you enough until you like
well,
do
yes,
something.
I do truly believe that like the definition of a Karen does not include if you're like yelling at landlords or yelling at cops, because landlords and cops are like fundamentally different from the rest of society. And also just like, especially like the climate of renting right now, like they're mistreating us. Like I literally, one of the changes they recently made is if one of our washers break, which our washers are broken near constantly. It's actually like a fun surprise when you can do a load of laundry at my apartment building.
Oh, that's adorable.
And this most recent time I was like, okay, like the washer's broken again. And he's like, oh, we changed our system. So now if you have a problem with the washer, you can reach out to the washer company. And the number is posted on the sign in the washers. So you don't come here. If you ever have a problem with any of the laundry again, you just go to them directly. I'm like, well, isn't that convenient for Graystar Corporate? Like,
yeah, because like
I'll mail them my dead body. I swear to God, this is insane. But like, it's brilliant. It's like if you can get away with doing that, then yeah, of course, like you can charge me $1,200 a month and provide me with no service. You are lucky enough to own a building that you will let fall into the most insane states of disrepair, and I just have no other option.
Yeah, being a landlord, it's like it's like all of what's wrong with capitalism kind of put into one.
And I go
job.
home and I draft this long email where I say, you deserve an apology from me. That was an inappropriate thing to say to you. But like at the same time, like I've been so mistreated by the company you work for, and you have like, it's so weird that you want to consistently deny it. And I know that like you have to deny it to keep your job, and this is not the time where you want to quit and whatever, but like, can't you at least like look at me with some degree of empathy in your eyes so that I get that like you're on the same page with me here, that like living here hurts. It's stressful. It's hard. This is when it's a very easy year outside of how hard it has been to live where I live.
And that's like such a fundamental. Like it's hard to have like good mental health when your living situation is hard.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to do anything to like the level that you know you can when like the place you go home to doesn't feel like home, you know, isn't like you should be able to do laundry. Like that's like that we live in a society where you have to like have clean clothes to be able to like do things. So you should be able to do laundry in the place that you live. Like that shouldn't be like a weird thing. Like you shouldn't have to call the washer. That is so lame of them.
And I'm not even like, to be so frank, like it's not even like nearly, I'm not suffering the most mistreatment out of all the other people that live there. And I think a lot of my like frustration comes from things I see happening to other people who have like infestations that they're simply not treating. And like they have like shit is always in disrepair.
Yeah, that's really bad. And like infestations, that affects everybody else.
Yeah.
That'll affect them. Like wouldn't you want to like have like a well-maintained property?
No,
to, like,
why would you? You can charge the same amount no matter what because you get people in there because you trick them.
Yeah.
They're desperate. They have no other options. They have to move quick because Denver's rental market moves really fast now.
It does.
Why would you? To maximize profits, you actually don't want it to be in a good state of repair. Because profits are maximized when you are spending the least amount of money on the building and charging the most that you can get away with. So you are actually incentivized on a financial level to not have the building be a good, nice place to live.
That's horrifying. That's right? A Black Mirror episode right there.
I know. I mean, yeah, it's so fucked up. But I was so bad. I was fully a Karen.
It's hard. You shouldn't with your profanity. Like, sir, my gosh. And you know, like for a fact, they listened to all 20 voicemails first and were like, wow, this person seems really needy. And then the one time you're like, hey, fuck you. They're like, that was like, I get that because it's like, I don't want someone to say that to me too. But it's like, it is much more nuanced than that person. And they like, no, empathy goes a long way. And like every single customer service job I've had where I've like tried to practice empathy, way less people get mad at me because I'm like, oh yeah, that does suck. And
100%.
they're like, oh, thank you for saying that.
But a lot of times empathy means saying, I know that they're fucking you over. And like I've taken that risk in a lot of jobs and I know that that's also technically a fireable offense. So it's like, okay, to a certain extent, I do understand that your job, like part of your job involves lying to me about what's happening here and gaslighting me. And like you need the paycheck just as bad as I need my paycheck. So, yeah, I was bad. These situations are complicated. I'm trying to be better, but also, if you or anyone you know works for Graystar Corporate, headquartered in Austin, Texas, I hope you absolutely die in the most violent death possible.
And I gotta say, I stan. I gotta say, I get that. I stan. Because that is horrible.
My goal for this year is to talk enough shit publicly about the property management company that I get like a scary letter in the mail.
And I hope you do. I hope they're like cease and desist, and it's like you get your be better. Like it's just like it's so gross. Like, how do you feel like you can go to bed at night knowing you're like making so many lives, like so many people's lives harder? Like that's just like,
well, because the people who are actually making the people's lives harder, like he goes to bed at night. The guy that I was talking to goes to bed at night thinking, I need a paycheck. This is a hard job and everyone's mean to me. And it's like, you know, and corporate sucks. And fair enough. The people who work at corporate never talk to us. And they never enter the building. They live in Austin fucking Texas. Isn't it so convenient how they are fully insulated from the effects of their decisions? They never have to look me in the eye. They never have to look my apartment in the eye.
Like that's
the eye of my apartment.
the eye of the apartment. You can't look through the people. It just like I don't know. And maybe it's because I've like tried to like think like, oh my gosh, I'm moral high ground here. But like, I like try and think about like the bigger picture with that. Cause like my goal is to try, I like want to leave the world with a bit like with more positivity. Like it's so like basic, but like I'd rather spread positivity. And
That's
I'd like
so
to think
Selena
that like,
Gomez of you.
I know,
That's so rare beauty of you.
It is, and like rare beauty is expensive, but it's good. No, I just like I don't know. It's just like that's like the vibe I want to do. So I feel like I try and think about that where I'm like, okay, well if I didn't do this, and I used to work in insurance, and I would blatantly on the phone be like, oh yeah, they're like screwing you over. I'm really sorry.
Yes.
Like I would literally be like, damn, like they really, really messed you up. And now I have a completely different view of like that entire sector of the world because of it. And it's just like, oh, okay, like, oh wow, like they're really not there to help you. Like they're there to help you if you paid them like this like certain way. And like, oh, it's just, it gives me such an icky feeling. I'm like, how do you not in a manager position, you're telling people to do that? Like I just can't picture how like those corporate people can't just like think, oh yeah, like maybe they're just not told anything. Maybe ignorance is bliss, but it's just I cannot comprehend it.
Well, they also like that's the way to make that amount of money. Generally, like you either have to get really lucky and be obscenely skilled in one specific department and get lucky because you're so good at a thing that's fulfilling to you and that is also ethical, or most of the time you have to work for a company and you may or may not believe in what they do, but all the money really convinces you.
Yeah.
Like there's a psyop going on that's convincing you that you are a landlord of a bunch of ungrateful tenants who are mean and fucked up and like they can't just go to a laundromat. Like
literally. And like laundromats, I'm like, y'all, like I get washers and dryers are expensive. I don't know. And I feel like laundromats have been around for a while, but I'm like, I feel like you should be able to like wash your clothes where you put them. Like that should just be like a thing. We live in a very developed, we live in a developed country. I feel like we should be able to have like stuff like that.
Speak for yourself. I live in Glendale.
Glendale.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Are you ready to get into questions? I'm so sorry. You're so easy to talk to. Okay. We've gotten into a lot so far. A couple of announcements before we get into questions. I have shows coming up. When this comes out will be right before my Des Moines trip. The Des Moines ticket link are up. That is a big room and I don't have a lot of followers in Des Moines. So if you're a follower and you know someone in Des Moines, send something to them and say, hey, this could be a fun night out. December, Tucson, Bisbee, and Flagstaff. Those ticket links are up. I'm just waiting for Flagstaff. But if you're in a city anywhere and you want to come see me, sign up for my text list. You'll get one text once when the ticket link goes live for your city. Number 2, this podcast is sponsored by the Patreon. Patrons have first priority to get their questions answered, and they receive a bonus episode every month. It's only $3 a month. There's 4 already up on the Patreon, as well as long form audio and video of my stand-up. If you want to ask a question to get answered in a future episode, you can find the link to that form in the podcast description or in my link tree on any social media platform. And number 4, I am switching up the format of this podcast a little bit. It's been so fun so far, and the listenership is like steadily growing, and I'm starting to get people saying like, I binged all the episodes and like they were so fun. And that is like so rewarding because with a podcast, it's not the same as like social media content where you just immediately get a fuck ton of comments. It's like there's like a lot of radio silence, and then all of a sudden we'll be like, oh yeah, I've listened to every episode and I love it. And it's like, whoa, that's crazy. I didn't know you were there. I didn't.
I mean, that is so every podcast you discover, I feel like you kind of like you go in really deep and then you become a more regular listener.
I mean, I've been a silent listener of so many podcasts. There's no way they'd know that I listened to their podcast other than like the number on the screen. Yeah. But basically, we've gone through 136 questions already, and that's so fun. The fact that you guys even ask me questions and trust me with your life's issues makes me feel so happy. But every time that I post, I get less and less questions in. There are 2 interpretations for this. One, you could say that I'm potentially like have a plateau of engagement and relevancy. Totally fair interpretation. I like to think the second option is that perhaps I've just answered so many of your questions that like you've gotten so many good advice and your lives are perfect now and you don't need any more advice because bad stuff isn't happening and you're not confused anymore. That's what I thought.
It's that one.
So basically, I'm going to be switching it up. If I get questions, there will still be questions in the episode, but I'm not going to be like needy on my Instagram stories, like, please ask questions, you guys, please, anymore. And we'll just start like having other segments. We'll just like talk about random shit in our lives and and stuff like that. So the format will change week to week. We'll see if you guys like it. If you don't like it and you liked the questions, then ask me some questions. And that's how we can get some questions. Okay?
Beautiful.
Sound good. Okay, so this is a listener submitted question. My boss keeps telling me she doesn't like the tone of my emails, and I'm like, it's just an email, girl. Who is in the wrong? How can women get ahead in the workforce if we are policing each other's tones? Signed, Nasty Attitude Girl.
That is an amazing question.
Mm-hmm.
I work in corporate America right now, and I have literally had that email thing so many times.
Me too.
Oh my gosh.
And here's the thing. I don't think this is, so you say like, who's in the wrong? Both of you. Because like she has such a narrow view of like what's acceptable to say that she's just going to be consistently disappointed as she moves throughout the world, and she can't just like read an email at face value. On the second hand, all feedback is helpful feedback, even if it's critical feedback, assuming she's not like being extremely mean and being like a manipulative, or assuming she's not making your workplace feel hostile and she is just genuinely giving you the feedback of like your tone is not acceptable. That is helpful, because for the rest of your life until you're literally old, you're going to be emailing old people.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people that you're writing emails to are going to be older than you.
100%.
For the rest of your work life, and like straight up, they all kind of agree on what's acceptable tone. And like I've gotten emails from one of my freelance clients that I am kind of an assistant to, will, send me back like, that tone was not necessarily appropriate for the person that you are specifically, and he'll rewrite my email in red and say like, this is the kind of language I want you to use in the future. And it's like, that's actually been so helpful for me.
Yeah.
As I email other old people for comedy.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking to young people, I feel like I'll just say what I need to say. But like sometimes you gotta be like, happy Monday, nice to meet you.
Dude, an email is it's another language. It takes time to like figure out. And I had this one boss at my first job out of college. She was the rudest emailer, and we would all talk about it. And I even tried to reflect and be like, is this my internalized misogyny telling me that like she doesn't email something? And then I would talk to everybody else in the office, and they're like, no, it literally sounds like she hates you in an email. And it's so weird, but it like caused us all to have like a rift. I mean, she ended up also being horrible at her job and like doing other really bad things that like kind of added to it. But it was just like I could communicate with everybody else in the office really, really well. And every single time she emailed me, I thought I was doing something wrong. Like, and it was just weird. But it's like, it's a language. It's like it's interesting.
Yeah, there are conventions with like your tone. There's ways to speak that are right and that are wrong. And like ultimately, knowing that you are coming across as cunty, whether or not that is fair, I think a lot of times, especially in comedy, I would like, if someone thought I was a bitch, I was just like, well, that's not fair. I didn't do anything wrong to them. I didn't blank. And it's like, I finally got to the point where it's like, if someone thinks I'm a bitch and I become aware of that, that is helpful feedback for me. That is a helpful data point about how I am coming across in different circumstances. I do not necessarily need to tweak who I am to fit every single person's perception of me. But if I am consistently getting data points reporting that I'm being perceived as a bitch, I got to figure out why that is, or the rest of my life is going to be hard for no reason.
And that is true. And like, I feel like something like even an email, it's like one of those things where it's like, we'll fight the man, we'll fight the power. I think emails might be a little bit lower on the priority list for it. Like, I'm okay kind of spicing it. Like, I write a good email. No, I do though. I'm proud of my emails, but I literally will have a million people proofread them because I just like, I'm like, you know what? I'd rather like, there are other ways I'd rather change the world. Like, I'm okay being a little bitch and like kind of giving up my email thing because it's like, I do it's like, it's just it's more fluffy language is all it is.
Never die on the hill of something small. Never die on a molehill.
Like, we'll change when we change the world at some point. I don't know when, but like when the revolution happens, we can change emails. We can make that on the list, but like, we'll focus on other things. I'm willing to change that. Like, and it is good feedback because you're right for like comedy and stuff. I now feel way more confident reaching out to people for comedy. Like, I've reached out to people in other states and I'm like, hey, but because I feel confident in how I write an email, it's like, I actually don't think they're going to take me at anything other than the value, like, at like what I'm saying.
And I will say that every time someone tells you how they're perceiving you, they represent probably 5 people who had the same experience and didn't vocalize it.
That's a way to think about it.
Like, one data point probably represents 5 data points.
Yeah.
If you think about like every person that compliments you, same thing, they probably represent 5 people who also were thinking positive things but never said it. So to answer your question, she's in the wrong because she sounds kind of like cunty. Like, I don't like your tone is so like, mom, get out of here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's giving you helpful feedback. And I think you should generally, if you can, very early on in your career, learn how to be genuinely grateful for any and all feedback, even feedback that is dumb and stupid. Because some of it will be. Like, if no one else has ever told you there's a problem with the tone of your emails, then maybe there's not a problem.
Yeah.
But also, maybe she's just the first person who's actually vocalized it, and everyone else has been like, no, that girl's a bitchy emailer.
It also goes a really long way. I've realized this just recently. It goes a really long way to do like the 2 seconds of self-reflection, because a lot of people are incapable of that. So if you're willing to just do that, you might, because she might be totally in the right. Her emails might be just fine, and that boss might be like totally weird for saying that. But if you took the time to think about that for yourself, it could help you in future relationships. When if you go back on a fight, you're like, well, how did I take this? It will just like help no matter what.
It's also like, this is so hard because, and I've told so many like women in comedy this, I genuinely do believe that this is genuinely good advice, and it hurts my heart because it feels so much like misogyny to say so, but like, you have to remember that you cannot socially mimic the men around you in comedy. You cannot make the same jokes that they are making. It will often be perceived as cunty when it wasn't perceived as cunty when they did it. You cannot assume the same level of familiarity. When 2 men meet each other, they are on a higher level of familiarity than when you meet at the same time. Like, you cannot, like, of course it's unjust, but if you know that you will always be perceived as more cunty for anything reasonable that you do, you should still move through the world wanting people to not think that you're a cunt, because people thinking you're a cunt is like the number one thing that will make your life harder. People thinking that you're a cunt will be a far greater burden on you for the rest of your life than having to rewrite every email. I would rather rewrite every email that I send than have to deal with a majority opinion of me as a bitch.
And that is just like, and that is a very uniquely like female problem that like, cause I mean, if I have an attitude, people think it's funny. Right? Like if I do it, they're like, oh, he's spicy. He's a spicy gay.
Interesting.
But, so it's like misogyny is just awful. Cause it's like,
well, there's also homophobia that you have
like
to put up to.
homophobia is also like super not great either. You know, like we don't stand either. We don't like either in this room, in this household. But yeah, like that, cause that is just something different where it's like, cause it like talking, like I can't talk to the straight male comics the same way that they do too.
Yeah.
But it's like a different way. If I did it's, I can't talk like them in a similar way to women, but it's different because I'm still like a guy, but they just like take me at a different level. It's very interesting how it's like similar. It's like why women and gay people just like click so well.
It's like there's a deeper question at all times of like, when do you want to really dedicate your life to changing the rules, and when do you want to just like spend a little bit of time learning how to play it by someone else's rules? Because you only have enough energy and time in your life to really change maybe a couple of rules, especially if you want the effects to be broad. So just remember that you're going to have to acquiesce to like most of them.
And and kind of like, if you're trying to just like put the better energy out into the world, you're already doing a lot. Like you're already doing so much if you're at least like trying, because you're never going to accomplish everything. So if you're like, if in some cases you're like, let me learn how to play the game a little bit, you have to learn how to play the game to be able to beat the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it sucks and it's stupid, but it's like sometimes you do have to learn the game to be able to be like, yeah, this is a dumb game. I did learn how to play. It's actually really dumb.
It's so much easier to talk about how dumb the game is when you're standing on the pedestal. Like,
yeah.
As if you're literally at start, you're going to be like, this game is stupid. And everyone's going to be like, okay, yeah, bitch, we get it.
Like literally. And it's like, yeah, it might be stupid, but like, you don't know. Like, you don't know how dumb it is. You really don't know. It is stupid. You're right. But
yeah. Yeah, emailing sucks. I wish every day that I could just like express my ideas clearly, because I think I'm generally pretty good at that. But in email, it's not about expressing your ideas clearly. It's just about playing by their little game.
It is literally about how can you be nice. Like that is like you, like if you're trying to get a point across an email, girl, you're already doing the email wrong. Just think, be nice. If a point gets across, that's awesome. But like, and it's so dumb because it's like the point of emails was to like make getting points across easier.
Yeah.
My gosh, it's because they're sensitive.
Yeah. Okay, so because that was like a workplace question, I then went on Reddit and I looked up some Am I the Asshole posts about the
Oh, I'm
workplace
so excited.
because that's my favorite genre of Am I the Asshole is like coworker disputes. And I found this one that is absolutely fucking insane, so I have to read it to
I'm
you.
so excited. Okay.
Okay, am I the asshole for telling coworker that his wife isn't that pretty? Okay. I, 22 female, have been at my workplace for almost 2 years now and get along well with most of my colleagues. We regularly go out on every other weekend and have activities which most of our colleagues join into, including my colleague Max, 33 male. Max is a very outgoing guy, extroverted, and has been at my workplace the longest, 6 years, as the turnover here is quite fast. Do you work at a restaurant? This sounds like you work at a restaurant. Okay.
Yeah.
I get along well with him and would consider him my best friend at work. I'm in love with him. No. We share banter and have a good laugh and have similar extroverted personalities. Max regularly attends the work activities and is the life of the party and workplace. His wife of 10 years used to come to the activities sometimes before I joined the workplace, but no longer does since having a baby a while back. So he's out drinking all the time and she does not. She's home with the baby. I love this so far. Okay. What really annoys me is how Max always puts his wife on a pedestal. It's insane behavior.
Yeah, girl, what?
It's almost like she's the one person he picked to spend his life with. He's always going on about how she is the best cook, has the best look/figure he has ever seen. A simple conversation between colleagues regarding which celebrity we fancy, British, okay, would be, nah, man, no one beats my wife's in terms of looks. Who is the best looking in the workplace? Nah, no one here. I've got really high standards. Have you seen my wife? Some of our colleagues have agreed with him, saying that his wife is really gorgeous, but I'm sure they are just humoring him.
Oh my God.
We were going through each other's videos on TikTok when another coworker commented to Max his wife resembled an anime character. She's slim, long black hair, and Asian. And I joked that she's not that pretty. Pfft. Max got offended and retorted that she doesn't need fake eyelashes and fake hair to look passable and that he understood why I needed them. Incredible response.
Wow.
I got angry and told him to piss off. Since then, Max has not been speaking to me and makes passive-aggressive comments. Am I the asshole? Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, babe, you are.
The twists and turns that this take are so funny because it's like, you're so insane and delusional. She didn't write in, to be clear, and everyone already told her that she's the asshole,
Okay,
100%.
good.
But like the fact that she's like, Max and I get along so great, but it's weird how he likes his life so much. It's like, you are in love with Max.
Yeah, you like Max.
You
It's
work
okay.
a restaurant job. He's the older one at that restaurant job. You guys all go out together. No one likes each other that much, but everyone's a little bit floundering. Your workplace should not have a turnover where the person who's worked there the longest, it's only been 6 years. That is such a uniquely bad sign.
That is a very bad sign. Also, if it is a restaurant, we all had a crush on the older server bitch. We all did. I remember mine. He was part of my coming out journey. He was so hot. He was the older server. We all had them. It's okay. But you can't.
I was more of a chef kind of gal. Sorry.
That is so ratty.
I fully dissociated thinking about the chef of the restaurant that I worked at when I was 20. Okay, here's the thing. That I just do love that, like, it kind of sounds like Max is going to be a dickhead, and then it turns out that Max is like so nice to his wife, and he's every time anyone has a conversation about anything, he's like, well, still not as great as my wife, am I right, guys?
That's the kind of derpy husband I want. I want someone to be like, oh my gosh, but my husband, like, yeah, talk about me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you should. Not for me, but like she gave birth with like a child. The least you can do is like compliment her behind her back. That's like actually the bare minimum.
Straight up. And I also am like, one of the weird hills that I will die on in a relationship, and I told this to my current boyfriend like really early on, it's like straight up, if you say unflattering or unkind things to me, about me to other people, I view that as a more intense betrayal than cheating.
Okay.
like by a factor of 10 times. I don't know
Okay.
why. I'm not very like physically jealous or possessive, but the idea of you sort of like humiliating me in that way. Well, and especially a big part of that is because we're both comics, so we have such a large overlapping group of
Yeah.
mutual acquaintances that it's like if you were to say anything unflattering about me or just anything that like was maybe neutral but not well thought out, you could be affecting other people's opinions of
Hmm.
me.
That is true. I don't know. I just because it's also like, why are you with this person if they're like the butt of your joke all the time, and you can't even like. There's a
Exactly.
difference between making fun of like your partner in stand up because odds are they've seen those jokes, and odds are they've like approved of some of them
Well,
or
in
something like
our
that.
relationship, if I think of a joke about him, I tell it to him first and he gets veto power. No questions asked.
And
And same for
that's so
me.
valid. And it like, but that changes it up where it's like when it's with your friends, it's different.
Uh-huh.
Like, because it's like those are like because you don't want to be the butt of a joke. Like you don't want to be like an inside joke for like one of your like person like that. I very much get where you're saying where it's like that's like it's an ick. Like
Yeah.
that, like it's gross. Like it's gross to like why would you want to talk about your partner? There's a difference between ranting and like constantly being the butt of a joke and like humiliating someone behind their back. Like there's a big
Yeah.
like everybody deserves to rant, but not everyone. Like you
But
shouldn't
like
do
I
that.
told him that like if you need to blow off steam about our relationship, like if I need to blow off steam about our relationship, I'm talking to my non-comic friends. And
100%.
same to you. You call your friends back home. You're not talking to anybody in Denver because he only knows comics in Denver. Or like
Okay.
I guess you could talk to your coworkers at the car dealership about like whatever problems you're having with me. Fine, totally whatever. You just can't talk to anybody that I know about it because that will affect my life in ways that are like unfair to
And
me.
when you have a big like overlapping circle, that is like super valid because you're right. Like the Denver comedy scene is big, but it's small.
Yeah.
So it's that like, and people will kind of like know and resonate with that. And also, whenever you're ranting about something, there are two sides to every story. Like my best friend, when she
Totally.
rants about like when she rants to me about her boyfriend, yeah, I don't like him. Like fuck that. But like it's because I like you're my person, bitch. So it's like I'm gonna obviously be
Yeah.
for you. And so it's like, but
It's
that's like the
so
job of
fun
that
to be
friend.
blindly loyal. I love it.
Dude, whenever I think about like, because that friend could literally tell me anything that boyfriend's doing, and I'm just like, if it's anything but worshiping the ground you walk on, then I don't want to hear it. He'll like she'll even tell me like points that he'll bring up that like are very valid, and I'll find something that
Yeah.
be like, no, like you're in the right.
It's like, well, of course you went through his phone. Of course you put a knife to his fucking neck because that was a reasonable response to what he was doing.
Yes, and of course, with that knife to the neck, you cut just enough for it to bleed to let
Yeah.
him know that yeah, that's girl, do it.
That's you telling him that your relationship is on the line. That's you making him be serious about stuff.
And that's on girl power. And I will support that. That's the kind of shit I support. But don't make me the butt of the joke. Because
Yeah.
yeah, because ranting is normal. That because it'll cause like you need to rant. That's like a very normal thing. But yeah, you don't rant to like the friends that you have in the same circle. Like that's weird.
Yeah, well, and also just like I think a lot of times I just like I was so upfront about it because I was like I feel like there's a very high degree of chance that like if you weren't thinking about how important this is to me and if I didn't make it clear how important this is to me, you could say something that like is very neutral
Hmm.
and like isn't necessarily like a mean joke about someone, but because of like my insecurities like would hurt me so much.
100, and that is valid. And also with the comedy thing, it's also like a male dominated scene. So it's like the second they feel like I feel like the second a woman is not perfect or something like that, there is still that. And so
That's
there's
what I
like
also
that.
told him. I was like, the weird thing about like a relationship in comedy, especially a hetero one, and I've told this to other girls who have dated comics, is like you have to remember that like whatever happens in the relationship will affect more negatively on you.
Mhm.
Like I'm dating a younger comic right now, and when young girl comics date older dude comics, 100% of the time it's like, oh, she's not that serious about comedy. She's just like in it to fuck male comics, which like first of all, like
Why?
no one's in anything to fuck male comics. Fucking male comics happens for one reason and one reason only, and that is desperation.
Hmm.
Like on a broad level, no one's
Hmm.
seeking out that group for fucking. But like no one would ever say about my boyfriend like, oh, he's not that serious about comedy. He just like was trying to get with people. Like obviously not.
No, like that wouldn't even cross like someone's mind. And yeah, you're right. You have been in the scene longer. So if it was flip flop, so it's just like, and that's something that like I feel like we as like a male species kind of need to be like aware of is the fact that like there's always going to be it's the same thing with like white supremacy where it's like there's always just going to be like a natural power like dynamic imbalance that like you kind of have to equate for everything because that foundation was laid. You kind of have to just like be aware of it. And so, but your boyfriend's cool.
Yeah.
He's chill vibes.
He is.
He's a car salesman. That's his worst quality.
No, he's so good at it.
Good for him. I cannot sell shit. That is, I would get fired as a car salesman so quickly. Unless it was Honda. I could sell a Honda. I love Honda. They're my favorite car brand.
Same.
I'm a slut for a Honda.
I drive a Civic from 2010.
Good for you. I drive a HRV. And I grew up with Hondas. I grew up in a Honda van.
I grew up in a Toyota family. So I felt sacrilege.
Wow.
And I had a Tacoma and a Sienna were my first 2 cars that I bought. And so then when I switched to Honda, I was like, but I looked at Camrys. I just couldn't find as good of a deal.
Well,
because I was looking for a very narrow range of years where they like were making some of the most reliable engines that have thus far been made, but things weren't as computerized yet as they are now. So repairing is still a lot cheaper than it is on more recent years. So yeah, I'm kind of a car girl.
Whenever I've shopped for 2 cars and I did months of thorough research.
We're the same.
We are. I knew we had like similar thoughts on life, but I didn't realize we both are. I did the research. I knew that I was like, this is like, and now people ask me questions about subcompact SUVs. Call me a straight man because I will give you all the answers.
Same.
I will tell you the size of the engine. I'll tell you the perks, everything on subcompact SUVs.
I want to run a business with you. I feel like we could work so well together. Specifically, everything would be handled.
Everything would be handled. 100%.
Filing taxes with you would be a piece of cake.
See, filing taxes really stresses me out. I went to H&R Block for the first time ever, and like the lady wasn't as detail oriented as I was expecting her to be. So I was telling her, I was like, "Ma'am, you did miss this," and I'm like, "Why am I like?" And I was like, I'm paying her to do my taxes," and I would literally be like, "You got that date wrong.
Oh my
God! Can you please fix that date?" And like that was painful. And I was like, "But I don't want to do my taxes. But like, do I have to do my taxes because I can't let anybody else do them?"
That's how a lot of things are for me. Okay, we do have to wrap up. Calvin, where can people find you? This episode will come out next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, okay.
Yeah, so what do you have going on?
I have a show at the Launch Cafe and Cocktails next Saturday. So that works out well. And then
that's a Denver show.
Yes, in Denver, Launch Cafe and Cocktails. It'll be a fun show. And then the week after that, also in Denver, I'll be doing Mother Tucker Brewery. I'll be doing a show there. Fun. I cannot wait alone for the name, Mother Tucker.
What's your social media?
My Instagram is at Calvin Reid, CalvinReid _. And then my Twitter, I don't forgot, but my TikTok is at Calvin R _ because Calvin Reid was taken.
And I am at Hannah Jones Cool absolutely everywhere. Sign up for the Patreon, submit a question, or even just like a topic you want us to talk about. Like I said, we're getting loose with the format. So submit anything at the link in the description of this podcast. That's where you can find any of the links of anything that has been mentioned. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day.